Hi everyone and welcome back to another fighter interview. I'm joined with Brodie Farber, who has competed in multiple organizations, including the UFC. Firstly, Brodie, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? Yeah,
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good.
yeah.
So firstly, for the audience, could you please walk us through what was your journey into MMA? Sort of how did you get into it?
I got into it. I did martial arts as a kid, but I kind of don't really count that because it was karate, and karate is kind of bullshit. To be honest, it was like anything that's kind of forms and isn't practiced at 100%. But back then, people didn't know that. It was like the cool Bruce Lee movies, and yeah, people didn't know what really worked until the UFC came around. So there was karate as a kid, but it really started kind of after high school. I was looking for a boxing gym to go to, and there wasn't any boxing gyms where I was at. But there was a spot that had some wrestling and judo and sambo and kickboxing and kind of mix it all together. And I went there one day and I just fell in love with it. So,
And what was the point when you realized that this isn't no longer a hobby or just something you're doing on the side, but actually something you wanted to pursue as a career?
I honestly probably right off the bat, not necessarily knowing as a career, but it was like, okay, this is my new thing. It's just like you're like, listen to maybe not anymore. I used to like turn the radio, look for a good song, and then you find that song, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the one. Um,
Yeah.
so it was just something that I knew that, yeah, this was my new thing. As a career, I don't know. I didn't really think about it. It was just something that I wanted to do, and it was just had kind of like primary focus, and I just yeah went for it. So.
And were there any specific coaches or idols which maybe would have pushed you in that direction potentially, or was it all just your choice?
It was my choice. I had a really good boxing instructor at one point who was trying to steer me to just box. Um, so he was actually trying to steer me away from MMA and get a contract with just boxing and focusing on that. But yeah, he was amazing. He was like a boxing savant. He had his father was a professional fighter. He was a professional boxer. He had that $1 million baby or that's that movie, right, where he loses his retina and
Yeah.
so he lost his eyesight really early, so he couldn't fight anymore, and he was just yeah he could mimic any fighter, new boxing. That was like his PhD in boxing for sure. So,
And so you talk about the boxing. What martial arts style would you say has resonated with you the most? I mean, is it maybe balanced, or was it maybe the grappling or the boxing which you tended to gravitate towards a bit more?
so I always, especially back when I was fighting mostly, you kind of had to go everywhere and piece together different martial arts. And so I always liked doing that. I would go, like I went to Sierra College and I wrestled. I went to boxing gyms. I went to Thailand and studied Muay Thai. I went to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms. So, and only later on did I kind of go to MMA gyms and somewhat piece it together. Now a lot of kids are kind of, or people are just training MMA and learning MMA. But yeah, I always kind of focused on singular styles and then try to mix them together myself.
And for any young fighters wanting to go into MMA, would you recommend them going martial art by martial art and mastering them or getting very good at each martial art, or going straight to the MMA class?
Probably straight to MMA, but then take time to really focus on each one. Pick wrestling is just shown time and time again. Wrestling, grappling, sambo, judo, um, has showed to be the martial art, and especially as for kids to not be taking any damage or striking each other too much. And you can train, especially when you're young and durable, you can train grappling all day long and just get better and better and better and better. So I would definitely start with the grappling base, but then mixing everything and just be smart about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been training jiu-jitsu myself and then only recently started Muay Thai. I'm very much enjoying it. So when preparing for a fight night, could you walk us through what the ideal fight count would look for you, the organization of it, how would it be structured?
The ideal, I mean, I towards the end, I was kind of one of the early guys that would go to Thailand and have my fight camps out there. That always worked the best for me, or just it was kind of later in the career. Um, just being in a spot, being away, having the facility where you can train everything. You had a lot of different partners. Obviously, you want as much time as possible and kind of be smart about the camp. You kind of gotta, you gotta dictate the training towards your opponent somewhat. Also, what you want to work on. I mean, it kind of, I think you want to try and lock it down as much as possible. And then as the fights go on and you learn what you need to work on and what worked and what didn't work, you can kind of tweak it and, get better and better at doing that.
Yeah, and you touched on it there. How important is the sort of research side of it and the game plan before entering the fight, would you say?
It depends. There's some people that are geniuses when it comes to that, and it works really well. And there's other really top fighters who don't even like watching. They don't worry about the other guy themselves, and they're just going to impose their will. I think it's good to have your coaches. Maybe if you're a fighter and you're not that into watching tape or knowing your opponent, or you just don't think it matters, if you have good
Mm.
coaches, they could dictate your training and help you do that without necessarily even doing it yourself. So,
Okay. And would there be any sort of diet changes? Obviously, with weight cuts and things as well when you do enter the sort of final 3 months before a fight.
oh yeah, I mean, same thing with everybody. You're just kind of my weight was never a big deal. I never cut a lot of weight. So it wasn't something that I necessarily need to worry about. I've always stayed extremely lean. I don't carry a lot of extra body fat. So, I mean, you just same thing. You want to make sure you get enough food to be able to train every day, and then you just want to clean it up to make sure you're tracking to get into weight. Weight wasn't a big deal for me. And obviously, the better your nutrition is, the better you're going to perform, the better you're going to heal. It's a very, very important element. But it wasn't a super big focal point or thing that I had to worry about a lot though.
Mm. And were pre-fight nerves something you ever struggled with, particularly at the start of your career?
Yeah, it wasn't something that was too big. I think everybody gets pretty nervous, but talking to other fighters, I feel like I feel overall that I handled it pretty well. It wasn't something that I struggled with. It was just part of the ride, part of what happens, and it wasn't overwhelming or anything. It's just yeah, it's just part of how it goes.
And did you have any rituals or anything like that that you do before the fight to try and get into the right mindset, or was it just laser focused?
No, there was no specific rituals. I think the important thing is keeping good people around you and just having good friends, family, everybody that understands that it's important and to not distract you. I see a lot of guys where their girlfriends or their significant others could be a serious problem before fights, where they might not be getting enough attention or whatever it is, or they'll even cause fights or cause issues, and just trying to focus and same thing like that. It's important, it's dangerous. So make sure that your life is as clean as possible and the people around you can help you focus on that where you're not distracted, focusing on other things that you don't need to be thinking about or focusing on.
Mm. And talk about other people outside the fight game that maybe don't understand it as much. For people who have never stepped in the cage or have never stepped on the mat, what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding or maybe the most frustrating thing people get wrong about the fight game?
I think people are pretty delusional about their own skill level. So I think a lot of people think that they can, that they're a lot better than they are, or just the kind of illusion that they have in their own skills without trying it.
And there's, oh, I think you just cut out there slightly.
Okay,
Oh no, we're back. We're back. So
we're back.
there's obviously
Okay.
a lot of glamour attached to fighting as well when you think about the media hype and the bright lights and the crowds and things like that. For any young fighter that's looking at that and really wanting to step into the cage, is there anything that's really important for them to know before entering that sort of space?
Um, no, I mean, I biggest thing I would say to younger guys who want to do it is make sure that you really want to do it, not for maybe because you tell your friends that it's cool or something, because it's high risk It's not really. I mean, the top guys make a lot of money and stuff, but most of the guys do not. So, and
Mm.
you're gonna use up some valuable years. You know, you're gonna probably have some injuries, and just make sure it's something that you love and that you really want to do, because it's a yeah, it's a big deal. And and the time, if you're gonna decide to do it, make sure you do it 100%. Like, don't fuck around. Really, if you're gonna do it, focus on it, and live it like a priest should. You know, just very focused and cut things out. So,
That's quite interesting because me personally, if I was to get very good in the gym, I would want to not because I don't want to have a career in fighting, but I think it would be really cool to do like a few amateur fights and go all in and train in it. But do you think that's not the right thing to do? Would you say?
no, I think that's actually an awesome. That's a really good perspective. Especially any man should know how to fight and know how to handle
Mm.
themselves. And so, like, I think that's perfect. You want to know that you can fight. You want to know that you can handle yourself, but it's not necessarily a career that you're going to do. So,
Mm.
you know, it's something that you can train. You know that you can handle yourself. You know that you can fight. You've experienced it, and then you can kind of move on and do what whatever else you want to do in life. So no, I think that yeah, I kind of think each guy maybe should do maybe one fight, or a few, but no, I think that's an awesome idea.
I will take that on board then. But it is a tough sport. I mean, it's very brutal. And speaking from personal experience, what would you say was probably your toughest career moment?
Um, for sure, the toughest career moment was when I finally made it to the UFC, and my fight easy, and then I got kicked in the neck. So
Mm.
yeah,
I mean, I watched that fight. I thought you were doing very well until that point. Um, yeah,
yeah,
how did you
yeah.
sort of deal with that straight after, aftermath of that?
You just kind of have to. You don't really have a choice. It's just one of those weird things. Like I had a shoulder injury going to that fight, so my training was just kind of keeping one arm down and throwing with the other. Just kind of heal, and then it was just perfect timing. Whether he tried to or not.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. And like, I know there's a lot of adversity attached to those UFC fights, but how do you reflect and look upon that time you spent at the UFC?
Um, I mean, I just look at it as positive and fun. I mean, I'm about to go back to Thailand pretty soon, and I only went to Thailand to kind of train, and now it's been a big part. So to just have those friends and connections in Thailand, and yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest, coolest things that I got from that is kind of traveling overseas and meeting people and training, and it's just been a thing that I keep going back and doing, and yeah.
And on the other side of things, what would you say was the most memorable moment of your career?
Um, Memorable. I don't know. I think early on was kind of in a way of when you're just thinking about fighting was more important because when you first start fighting, you don't necessarily know how good you are or if you can do it. So it was kind of like the early fights where I fought tough guys in big they were small events but big for me, like fighting
Yeah.
main event or top guys or Olympians and being a young guy and not really knowing how it's going to do and then beating, like top guys or beating a Olympic judo guy or beating, just really tough guys that kind of prove that you can do this and you're where you're supposed to be. So,
Hmm. And then sort of
but
just looking at the fight game. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was gonna think too. I did for the UFC. We did the Fight for the Troops. They used to do those
Mhm.
out in North Carolina, and that time on the base with the guys out of Fort Bragg was really cool. That was just an overall cool event. Just the guys were so happy that we were there, and it was yeah, it was just it was good to be out there with the troops, and it was a cool event.
And sort of looking at the UFC and the fight game and what it's become now, what do you think are some of the biggest changes you've seen in the sport since you were competing in the organization and just in general?
I mean, I mean, everyone's getting better. Just the sports evolved. So you see a lot of people that you've never heard of, and they come in and they're very young and they're just very good and well-rounded. people are making a lot of money. There's just a lot more eyes on it. There's a ton more fighters on the card. So it's like that's one thing. I used to know every single fighter there was, that was in the UFC or in the other leagues, and it's like I look at a card and I don't know hardly anybody anymore. Um, but yeah, it's just in the mainstream, and the guys are super good, and the athletes are getting better, and there's just a ton of guys on the roster.
Yeah, I was going to say, how often do you still tune into the UFC or other MMA events?
Other MMA events, not that much. Now that UFC is on Paramount and it's basically a subscription and free, I've been watching a lot more.
Mhm.
But I wasn't one that would necessarily, pay the $100 or whatever to watch the fights. So yeah, but now it's on Paramount. It's just an add-on. I try and watch as many as possible. So,
Yeah, so for us in the UK, it's subscription, then you get it all free. It's been like that for quite a while, and then but it's obviously the time difference is very interesting. I do find myself watching the cards at around like 3 a.m. and times like that. It's crazy, but
oh yeah, there's been a couple of those. There was the recent one with Fitiev, and then there was the one in Macau, China, and stuff. And then there was Australia card with
yeah.
Prates when he fought. Yeah, those are all like kind of weird hours here too as well.
Do you have a favorite fighter at the moment?
At the moment, like so just brought up Fitz. I really like watching. I was really impressed with his last fight, Rafa Fiziev. Um, I think he's one of the best strikers in MMA. But then obviously he had, kind of a rough last 4 or 5 fights. I think he got injured. He lost to Gaethje, and then like one of his, I know because he's out in Thailand a lot, that one of his other fights was super last minute where he lost to Gaethje again. And but it was cool watching this last fight because he came back and he won, and to where it could have been kind of career ending, which is crazy because he's so good, but it was like the losses were kind of adding up, and now he's right back kind of in the mix of it. I really like watching Prates as well. Um,
Yeah,
I Rufy is super good.
yeah.
He's super impressive. Um, Trying to think, those are some of the top guys I like watching.
Yeah, it's this young set of fighters. They're getting to new levels each generation, which is coming through us. It's really impressive to see.
Yeah, yeah. I felt bad for Chandler that they gave him Rofi for the White House. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, that was brutal to yeah, for him waiting for those fights, and then same thing, being American on the White House card and then getting thrown to the wolves like that. I was like, man, that was rough.
And when you look at how big the UFC's become and things and the improvements they've made, are there any improvements and changes you still want to see? Just maybe just in the UFC or overall in the fight game?
Honestly, I haven't given it, too much thought on what I would want to see. I mean, I kind of think like some of the guys that there shouldn't be any stand-ups. There shouldn't probably be any time limits either. A time limit maybe for the fight, but not necessarily rounds. I'd like to see, fights just continue as they may, throughout the whatever 15 minutes or 25 minutes. Like the fight starts and then it ends where it ends. If it gets boring, that's just how it is. It's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think I saw Khabib say something like, obviously, grappling heavy fighter was very much like
Hmm.
it should just be one long fight, and they shouldn't stand them up between rounds.
Yeah, yeah. Pride used to have somewhat of that, and um, yeah. I would like to see that for sure. It's kind of yeah. I think it's just it's kind of more realistic in how it should be. So.
And away from the fight game, what do you like to do to switch off and relax from fighting? I mean, I've seen the very cool hunting videos on your Instagram, which I found very cool. But what do you like to do to relax?
I mean, the two my main hobbies now is probably hunting and riding motorcycles. So yeah, probably those are kind of the top things for sure.
And what lessons have you learned from fighting, which have translated also very well over into your own regular day to day life?
I mean, the biggest thing with fighting is it teaches you, discipline a lot, and just it's nice being know that you can handle yourself in public with other people. That, even though I'm out, I still train, I still have the skills, I still, diet is still good, I still work out a lot. Just overall, it just brings you a level of discipline and just skills that carry on into other stuff very well. So.
And I've seen that you've also done some seminars and coaching sessions. What have you enjoyed most about delving into that side of the sport rather than actually doing the, being that young fighter, learning? I mean, I know you're learning all the time, but actually taking that sort of coaching role.
Yeah, I've never really loved coaching all that much, but with just the travels and all my friends in different areas, when I'm visiting, I like to, if I can, if they want, give back to the gym and, have the guys, if I can help out and give some tips and stuff. So I spent a bit of time down in Mexico and at La Colonia Jiu-Jitsu in Puerto Escondido, and I'll usually try and do something there. And I used to do seminars a lot when I was in Thailand and yeah, just kind of help out and give back to the gyms that that I spend time at.
Yeah. And I know you said you're still training, but what are some of your own personal goals now going forwards this year?
I mean, for training now is just completely different. I just want to train as long as possible. So now I just try and stay, as healthy as possible and to keep training just to kind of feel good and look good and yeah, I have enough skills where I don't have to worry about most people. I'm not going to be in a fight with any of the current UFC guys or anything, so I'm not too worried about that. But just yeah, just to feel good, be physically capable, look good, not get injured, and just continue to be able to train and move, for as long as possible.
Yeah. So how were your injury? How were your injury like challenges throughout your career? Would you say was it overall quite good, or did you have any severe problems?
So I honestly didn't. The only injuries that I've had have come from outside fighting for the most part. So
Oh well.
I, yeah, it kind of sucks to be honest. I'm gonna scoot back. I'm getting in the sun. Yeah, I tore my bicep tendon at one point, but that was I was on a motorcycle and kind of it was heavy, and as it was going down, I tried to lift it up with one arm, and then I had um, this chiropractor actually tore my leg in my hip, and so I got to have that fixed at some point. But yeah, I did some minor shoulder stuff from fighting, from training. But overall, comparatively to most people, I mean, my knees are good. Yeah, I got to get my hip fixed. But that was yeah, that was from a chiropractor, and the bicep was for motorcycles, and yeah, so.
That's really interesting because you'd normally think like, oh, your biggest injuries would have come from stepping in the cage and fighting someone, but it's actually come from outside it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And in terms of like, I mean, I was speaking before this interview to fellow fighters I know, and one of the issues they were bringing up was um, parents almost getting in the way of their training, so they didn't maybe want them to do an amateur fight or getting kicked in the head, for example. Firstly, do you have any message in that regard, or was that ever a problem for you?
No, I remember. So I didn't really start fighting until I was like 20 years old. And so, but I remember we had to go to Tijuana and down in Mexico to fight because it was still kind of illegal in the States. And I remember when I kind of told my family I was going, they, because same thing, it wasn't proven yet. And they just thought like, oh shit, that's dangerous and don't get beat up. But then I used to laugh because my brother did motocross. And like he broke his neck, all his buddies would have all these crazy injuries all the time. And it was, yeah, fighting was a lot safer than doing the motocross and the other stuff I was seeing. But I understand as a parent and not wanting to, have their kid. Um, yeah, I mean, I would if my kid wanted to do it, I wouldn't be opposed, but it would definitely be very grappling heavy and
Mm.
make sure the striking was done smart and the trainers around and the training was, yeah, done in a productive, smart way.
And would you recommend also that trip to Thailand when delving into the striking areas?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Thailand is a very easy place for people to go and to train. It's very, it's just easy. It's safe overall. Now there's so many different gyms, so many places to go. But just same thing. Be careful in the training and with the trainers. Like getting into say an MMA room where you're gonna have guys from all different styles, all different gyms, all different countries. Some people can go extremely hard, others won't. You don't know kind of what you're going to get. And so just, yeah, be careful kind of who you get paired up with and what gyms you go to, and make sure you don't get thrown into some Muay Thai fight right away so they can win some money, or you get put with some fucking some wild Russian guy that's going to just take your head off at the first day. So um,
Yeah, because I was going to say that circle. How important was that for you? Did you manage to find the right team quite early on that sort of worked with you throughout the whole of your fighting career?
Not really. I wish I had a better team. So I didn't really have an MMA team until way late in the career.
Mm.
Like I said, I always kind of piece things together and went around. And so I was kind of putting together my own stuff. And it was like I went here for jujitsu, and I had a jujitsu guys, but then I went here for striking, and I went here for boxing, and I was piecing it together. And then later on, did I only like join a team that had a lot of top kind of MMA guys, and where we could work together and train. And if I did that earlier, it would probably been much more productive. So
So would it be people from those separate martial art groups that would maybe corner you on fight night?
yeah, correct. So whichever
Okay.
one I was maybe working more on at that time, or whatever it was, different times, I would pull them in, and yeah.
And finally, I just want to get a full summary of what do you believe fighting has done for your life and what has it basically meant for you?
Um, it, it's hard to say because it was so formative and helpful in so many ways, but it's also, you got to really think though, as your life goes on. It's like these years, these kind of prime years that you focus on fighting, um, you could possibly be doing something else, so it gave me so much, but I could have also, possibly been doing something else that was maybe more productive at this point. And so it's hard to really say. I just really wish that honestly I would have focused on it a little bit more because I was doing it already, and I wish I wouldn't have been distracted at times, and if I was going to do it like I was, to just really focus and give it 100% during those times, and not get distracted and not stay out of the gym and not like focus on other things so much. And at those times, if I was going to maybe be so distracted and focusing on other stuff, that would have just been like, okay, I did enough at this time, and just kind of walk away. So,
Brodie, thank you. I think that's been a brilliant interview. It's been a pleasure having you on.
oh, thank you as well, man.